Hey Blessed family, it's your girl Bella. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming a September reading wrap-up, wrapping up all the books that I read in the month of September. So far I've read 8 books this month, which isn't a lot for me, but I did just quit my part-time job, so hopefully in October I will have read more books for you all. So I've read 8 books this month. 4 are fiction, 4 are nonfiction, 4 were on audio. The nonfiction books were on audio because if you hand me a nonfiction book and ask me to read it on paper, it will take me 3 months, and I have evidence of that because I have a nonfiction book that I'm reading and it's been taking me 3 months because it's not on audio. So far I've read 2,605 pages. So the first book that I read this month was Finley, Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead, which is number 2 in the Finley Donovan series. So this book follows Finley Donovan. She is a divorced mother of 2, currently fighting her husband in a custody battle. So this book is like a cozy murder mystery. If you read the first book, then you know that that book was about how she's sitting at a Panera and she's talking to her publisher about her newest book idea, which is a thriller, and a lady overhears her and is like, oh, she's a hit woman. So she slips her number and is trying to get her to do a hit on her husband. So this is the next book in the series. So in this book, it's following another hit that she finds, but it's related to someone who's close to her in her personal life. In the synopsis you can see who it's about, but I just don't want to spoil it if you haven't read the first book. So the person that has a hit on her life is someone closer to her, so she's trying to stop the killer from killing this person that's very close to her. I give this book 5 stars. Personally, I loved it. This book is so dramatic, it's over the top, it's full of antics. Like, I thought it was great. I know some people didn't like this book as much as they liked the first one. I rated the first one 4 stars, so personally I like this one more. If you like a cozy murder mystery that still is like very funny and a little bit dramatic and a little bit unrealistic, then I think you will like this book. But if you've read the first book and you didn't like it, then you probably won't like this book because it's just a continuation of Finley's antics. So the next book I read was One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley. So I gave this book 4 stars. This is a romance technically, but I would label it more as a contemporary. There's romantic bits in it, but I read it more for the contemporary piece. So this book is about a woman whose name I do not remember. Her mother passes away and she has a very close relationship with her mother, so when she passes away she just feels like she's lost everything in her life. So her mother took a trip to the Amalfi Coast in Italy when she was very young, and so her and her mom were supposed to go on this trip together, but now that her mom has passed away she decides to go on the trip on her own and kind of live that experience that her mom had and that her mom really wanted her daughter to have. So I like this book a lot because I just thought that the writing was so freaking beautiful. I have never read writing as beautiful as in this book. Like, Rebecca Surley is gifted with the pen. Like, she can write a beautiful story. She painted the Amalfi Coast so beautifully. I felt like I was actually there. If you like beautiful writing, you will love this story. Also, I don't even really like tomatoes, and she has made me start eating tomatoes. The way that she was describing the tomatoes in this book, like, I eat tomatoes now. She converted me from a tomato hater to a tomato lover. I will say the reason why I did dock a star is because her dependency on her mother is a little bit much, and at the beginning she is kind of a little bit disrespectful to her husband. Like, he's trying to help her cope with this, with everything she's going through. Like, he's being a really good husband and she just kind of like, I've lost love of my life, my mom is love of my life, you can't do anything for me. So I did not like that aspect of the book, but the writing was so beautiful and she made me want to eat tomatoes, so 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Miracle Equation by Hal Elrod. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my little bullet journal. This book I gave 3 stars. It is a self-development book, and the main principle of this book is that unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort equals miracles. So this book is just about, what is this book about? What is this book about? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what is this book about? That's how you know I did not retain a lot of the information in this book. It was very boring to me. Okay, I remember now. So pretty much this equation that he has, where it's unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort equals miracles, is pretty much a equation that he has that can help you achieve anything you want to achieve in life. So he used this equation when he was fighting cancer, when he got in a car crash, when he wanted to be a top salesperson at his old job, and then he's showing how this equation has worked for him and how he's also used it to help other people. Now, I don't doubt this equation at all. I think it's very true. I do believe that if you have unwavering faith and extraordinary effort, you will achieve whatever you want, because if you believe believe that you can achieve something and you put extraordinary effort behind it, I don't see why you wouldn't achieve what you want. So I do believe the equation is true. I just don't believe this was a unique book. A lot of self-development books say this, a lot of inspirational quotes say this. I just don't think it's that unique of an idea. That's why I gave it 3 stars. And as y'all saw, I really forgot what the book was about. Like, I was reading this and I was bored, I was zoning out. Well, I was listening to it technically, but I was bored and I was zoning out, so I just didn't really love this. But I guess if you've never... No, it's so loud! Oh my gosh, every single video this happens. If you haven't listened to any self-development books, or if you haven't read any self-development books, then I think you would enjoy this. But if you have read self-development books already, then I personally would not read this. I'm sorry. Someone I know recommended this to me. I'm sorry. Okay, next one. The next book that I read was Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. It is his memoir or autobiography, which I gave 5 stars. So this book was 656 pages. Woo! In my last video, my weekly reading vlog, I touched on this book a bit more, but just about the dynamic life of Nelson Mandela. It goes from his childhood to when he's in law school to the 27-year sentence that he served, and then once he gets freed, he's out. So I thought this book was amazing. He lived such a dynamic life. One of the most touching parts of the book for me was when he talks about how his mother died in prison and when his son died in prison, his oldest son, and he had to really reflect on his life and ask himself if it was worth it for him to pretty much not get to be with his family for a great portion of their lives and his lives, because he was involved in this movement, and just coming to a realization that it was worth it because he was fighting for the freedom of his entire country and for his people. So I thought that was a really astonishing revelation that he had, and I thought that was amazing. And yeah, this is a great biography. If you want to read a wonderful biography, I would definitely recommend this one. It is long. It's 656 pages, 28 hours on audio, but it is so worth it, and it's very captivating, and I loved it. He's a great man, and I wish he was still alive so that I could meet him. But I'll meet him in heaven, okay? The next book I read was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I also mentioned this in my weekly reading vlog, which is my last video. I will link it down below for you to watch after this video. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It is a new adult romance, specifically a second chance romance, about 2 authors, Shane and Eva, who have a week-long romance when they are in high school, and then they are torn apart for about 14 years, and then they see each other again 14 years later. So I thought the romance was fine. It wasn't anything like, some people said they cried. I did not cry. And I cry about everything, and not a tear even tried to come out of my eye. I thought the romance was fine, not anything extraordinary. My biggest qualm with this book was the third act conflicts. I felt the third act conflicts were not complete, in my opinion. Like, they were brought up, but then they weren't finished, and I didn't like that. That's why I gave the book 3.5 stars. If the third act conflicts would have been fully fleshed, I think I would have given this book 4 stars. I don't think I would have given it 5 because it wasn't a 5 for me. But I will say it was still a very enjoyable read. I liked that it was different from a lot of the romances that I've been reading, because I've been reading a lot of rom-coms and I'm so over them. So I truly enjoyed that book, and it's actually crazy, that's the only romance I read this month. The next book is Becoming by the Michelle Obama. It is her autobiography, and I actually read this for another video that I have coming up next month, so stay tuned for that. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought this book was super interesting. It's just the life of Michelle Obama. I found a lot of parallels in her childhood and my own childhood that I found super duper interesting, just in terms of how her parents wouldn't give her a curfew, but they'd be like, you don't have a curfew, but what time do you think you should come home? My parents used to love doing that, especially my dad. He'd be like, what do you think is a good time to come home from your friend's house? And I'd be like, I don't know. But I see now as an adult how it's just kind of like building you up to know like what you should and shouldn't do, and getting you in the space of making your own decisions. So I thought that was a really interesting parallel that we both had in our childhood, along with some other parallels that I saw. I also found it interesting how, I don't want to call her a pessimist at all, because she's not. She's definitely a very optimistic woman, and an influential, phenomenal woman at that. But she really did not believe Obama was going to win the election in 2008? In 2008. Yeah. She did not believe he was going to win that. I said... And also just, I feel like maybe me, because I like the glamour and the glitz, she wasn't like super duper excited to be the first lady either. Like, she was not super excited about that. And I was like, I found that very interesting. But she definitely adapted to it. I love how she had the first garden in the White House. She also talks about the changes she made with healthy foods at schools. So I thought it was super interesting. It also reminded me of how great Obama was in his first term. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of his second term, but that first term, he got so much done. Despite the fact that Republicans were like trying to stop him from doing everything he wanted to do, he got so much done that first term. That first term was phenomenal. I don't care what anybody says. So I give that book 4 stars. I definitely recommend it if you want to read about a phenomenal woman. The next book I read was Mary Jane. This is for my book club. This book is by Jessica Anya Blau. I gave this book 4 stars. This was a historical fiction coming of age YA story. In the synopsis of this book, they say it's about a young 14-year-old girl in the 1970s and how she gets exposed to a life of rock and roll, sex, drugs, all this stuff. And that is true, but mind you, this is a YA book, so she's not actually having sex, she's not doing drugs, she's just exposed to it. And I just thought this book was so enjoyable. It was just a coming of age, slice of life story. This book has no plot whatsoever. It's just vibes. So if you like a plot driven story, I would not recommend this. If you like a character driven story and you just like vibes, you would totally enjoy this. I thought it was so fun. I literally laughed out loud at multiple parts of this story because Mary Jane she grew up in a very conservative household, so she was just ignorant about a lot of things, and seeing her learn about things was just super interesting in my opinion, and it was really fun. They went to the beach for like a week, and personally, I don't like vacations and stories. Isn't that weird? Hey, it's not true. I love The Unhoneymooners, and that's like a vacation story. But if it's a story where they're just living their lives, and they go on vacation for a week, and they go back home, I usually don't like the vacation portion. So the vacation portion was a little bit boring to me personally, but overall, I really enjoyed this book. One of my favorite movies is Dazed and Confused, which also takes place in the 70s, and that movie is no plot, all vibes. So that's why I think I really enjoyed this. And the last book that I read this month, I actually just finished today. I was listening to it while I was at work. And it's also for a video that I have planned for next month, so stay tuned. This book is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. She has 3 memoirs. This is the very first of the 3 memoirs. I gave this book 4 stars. This book was hard for me. When I first started listening to it, I was like, no. Can't do it. So I had to stop. You have to be in the mood to listen to this book or read this book. If you're not in the mood for it, I would not read it because, you know, also the thing is I'm listening to her voice, and she has a very unique voice. And so at the time I was not ready to hear that for 8 hours. But I restarted it yesterday and I was like, nah, I'm ready for this now. Like, I'm in the mood for this. I thought this book was really interesting. It's about the life of Maya Angelou. I keep calling her Angelou. Isn't it Angelou? Maya Angelou. It's her life from the time she was a little kid till about 16. The book stops when she's 16, and it ends on kind of like a cliffhanger. I don't want to say what it is. It's an autobiography. It's a memoir, so I don't really feel like you can spoil it. But at the same time, people may not know this fact about her because I didn't know about her until I read the book. So this book is interesting. It's about her childhood, her growing up. She was raised by her grandma. She also lived with her mother in Missouri for some time. She also lived in California for a bit of time with her mother, but overall she was raised with her grandma, with her older brother Bailey. So it's just her life story from her early life up until about 16. My main thing I didn't like about this book and why I docked a star was because I felt like it was easy to get confused in this book. Like, typically when I listen to audiobooks, I listen to them while I'm at work. Like, if I'm listening to an audiobook at work, I prefer it to be like memoirs and autobiographies or fiction where I don't have to give it all my focus. I said it to say that memoirs and autobiographies are usually easy for me to read at work, and it's easy for me to multitask with them. But with this one, I found that I was getting lost sometimes. Like, I'm on Excel, and then I'm like, wait, what happened, Maya? I'm on Excel, then I'm like, wait, what just happened? And I'm not rewinding because I don't have time for that. I just found that it was easy for me to get a little bit lost on the audio, but then I did get right back into it once I just started paying attention again. But I really felt like I couldn't multitask as much with this book. Like, it was a little, not all over the place, but it wasn't all over the place. That's not what it was. It just wasn't as easy for me to multitask. And for me, someone who usually multitasks while listening to memoirs and biographies, I found that to be an issue that I personally had. Overall, this was a great reading month for me. I only had 1 3-star book, no 1s, no 2s. That is really good for me because I think my average Goodreads rating is like around 3.5, give or take. So that is really good for me. I had a great reading month. I love the books I read this month. I think I had an amazing reading month. Definitely follow me on Goodreads if you want to see what I'm reading in real time. Also follow me on Instagram. I always have those two linked down below in the description box for you all. If you made it this far in the video, leave me a star emoji in the comments just so I want to see who stayed till the end. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in my next video.